Di here. Today I'm bringing you my very first project as a member of the Jenofeve design team. Very exciting for me to be a part of that team. It's going to really challenge me over the next 6 months to use Jen's wonderful printables and templates to the best of my imagination, so I'm really looking forward to that. For this very first project, using this Paper Dreams set of templates, one of the things that I really thought I'd like to try and do was to use book pages, use them up. It's always a concern of mine that when I pull a book to pieces to you, I'm left with a whole heap of other bits that don't get used, and I can make pockets and tags and all sorts of other embellishments for my other journals. But this time I thought, let's try and make the whole journal, the pages for the journal, from this paper. So that's what I did. I've pulled out the Country Diary of an Edwardian Lady, which was written by Edith Holden back in 1906. And this edition was reprinted in the early 80s. I also have this Janet Marsh's Nature Diary, which has got lovely, luscious paper, as has the nature notes. It's lovely, creamy paper. This is a little darker than that. It's faux fox, but it's slightly sort of distressed looking. And this is a nice big page and has lovely big illustrations, whereas this one has smaller illustrations. Equally charming and very usable. Even the font on this, you might be able to see there, it's written, it looks as if it's been written by hand, and it's in a sort of a sepia colour ink, and it's lovely to use on pocket fronts and things like that too. So they were the, if you like, the designer paper that I wanted to use. And this is called Works of Man, and it's an engineering book, and it is just amazing. The trouble with using these pages for making things, you keep stopping and wanting to read up because there's so much interesting. It astounds me how much research this man must have done to actually produce this book. The reason I chose this one was the paper quality is great, and that's probably your main priority. These two, although they're lovely colours and lovely weighted paper, they're very soft. Great for matting and for tags and for all those sorts of things. Whereas this is great for, you can score it, fold it and adhere it, and it's lovely and robust. And although the size of it was important, when I went through Jen's Printable and copied out the components I wanted, which were, these were the covers, which were page 40, and this was the spine, page 43. I chose the largest of the spines, the half-inch spine, for 5 pages because I knew I wanted 5 inserts. So those were copied out, and I could tell by the way they fit on this page that this page was going to be fine for the pages within the journal, because this is a little larger than the pages. The covers and the spine I cut from recycled cereal box, doubled them up. I cut 4 of the covers and 2 of the spines, put them together and adhered them together, so they made a lovely robust piece to use. So that was that. When I pulled out the pages, just to check, because it goes that way, it's almost the entire font field. There's just a little bit either side, about half an inch either side, that's not covered by text. So I thought that would do. It's the best I had with the best quality paper. So I used page 2 of the Printable, which is the, let me just check the name. This is Main Base A Part 1, and this is Main Base A Part 2. So both of those pieces page 2 and page 3 of the template printable, and that became my pages. And to make them from these pages, all I did was pull out a double page like this that's got a lot of text. It's not broken up by big gaps or illustrations, and then I adhered it together with my Helmar Premium Craft Glue, which is the best one I've found for actually adhering pages together. It doesn't leave the little ridges and lumps of adhesion that some of the other glues do. So glued them together, needed 2 of these double pages to make 1 page. So that was that. When I made the pocket, which again is, this is page 3, and it's a pocket that goes in that. I used that for the pocket, and I used this one, page 4, main base B, and that's what I used for my flip page. And I've trimmed off the extra tabs along the side, so it's just got 1. What I did for this though, when I was making the flip pages, was I lay the edge of the tab along that side of the text field, and instead of cutting it there to make the flip page the same size, I actually cut it along this edge of the text field, so it just made the flip page about 1 inch longer, or widthwise a little wider than the actual template. The pocket for the back, that was page 3 part B, because of the size of it, it fitted almost exactly on a page, a single page this time, folded in half down the middle, adhered together to form a narrow strip. As if I then lay this edge along the fold, traced around and cut it out. It did make this back tab just a fraction short, but really that didn't matter, there was plenty there to adhere it down. And what that did, it gave this edge of the pocket a fold rather than 2 cut edges, so it just made it a little more robust. So that's the component parts that I used, most of them. The other bits and pieces that I used were the envelopes. I used this little one, which was page 8, main base C, so that's one of the tiny little albums from the Printable, but I used that as a tuck spot. It was one I had printed out the rest of the page, and so I just cut that out, and I thought I had a nice little illustration. I'll show you that when I get into the album. And so I tabbed it the other way and used that as a tuck spot. The tall envelope on page 9, I made 3 of those and used 1 on each page under the belly band, but I had to alter that a little but I'll tell you that when I get to the album so you can see what I mean. I also love this little mini tall envy, which is the same as this but tiny, and I made a few of those. And this little envelope, which is page 5, and it's the gift card envy. So I made a few of those because envelopes are always great to tuck into a journal. They give you plenty of space to put little little memorabilia, ticket stubs, bits and pieces that you collect that are small. You can pop them into those and you've got them safe. What I did with this one, which is the page 6, the mini square envelope, as I was cutting these out, I couldn't put these pages through my printer. They're all odd sizes, they're not letter or A4, and because I was positioning some of them over bits of illustration and that sort of thing, and I wanted text to be, for example this part, I wanted the text to be up the right way. If I wanted this part, which would normally fold down, if I wanted that text to be up the right way also, I would cut that with a little tab and then adhere it so that the text was up the right way. So sometimes you have to jiggle them around depending on the look you want and the paper you're using. But while I was cutting this out, I had the idea that I should scan some of these smaller pieces into my brother's scan and cut, and that way I could simply cut them out using the scan and cut, because you can make multiple cut. You want 4 envelopes, for example, and you've got a 12 by 12 sheet you can cut them from. You just increase the number to be cut and position them on the page so they're all cut according to the paper that you've got. And Bob's your uncle. What I hadn't realised was this paper was too soft. It really didn't cut out in the scan and cut, so that sort of failed for me from that point of view. I did cut one out because I'd scanned several of them in. I did cut one out on a scrap of cardstock just to prove that it worked, and you know it does. It's great. It was a very quick way to cut out your pieces if you're using normal paper, normal cardstock. I just thought I'd share that trick with you. Just pop these away and we'll get started on the... Might leave that one out because I need to talk about that. So the paper dream is just full of different sized albums, different components you can use. You don't have to make everything from the same size. You can make it from smaller albums and add to the one you're making. Just wonderful. It really is a great resource for anyone that makes albums and journals. She made it particularly to use up the small paper stacks, the 6x6s, the 6.5 by 6.5 paper pads that we've all got, and they fit beautifully onto this size. But as I say, I didn't use any of those, but I intend to make some more, so I will do. The journal itself is fairly plain. There is no inking of the edges because I didn't print any of the pages out. I kept it sort of clean and straightforward. I didn't get any of this coloured edge on the pages, the things I cut out. And I did that quite deliberately. I just left the whole thing quite clean. It's got a nice big dangle on the spine. I'll actually take that off because I don't like playing with the journals with them on. They're noisy, cling around. The dangle hanger is just 2 grommets through the back of the spine above each of the signatures. Poke the chain through from the outside, and on each of the ends add a little split ring, and that keeps the chain secure, stops it from pulling back out. Put a split ring, a fishing swivel and another split ring, and there's your dangle holder ready for action. On the inside here, because I added those split rings, I had an ideal spot to poke through a bit of seam binding to make page markers. So I've got a page marker, double page marker on each of these signatures. You can see there, this is, and why I call it a hybrid is because it's got 3 album pages and 2 journaling signatures. When I made the cover from the cereal box, I covered it first with white paper and then used this lovely rich cream music paper. It's a Bach organ concerto pad that's quite substantial. I've got lots of pages of that and quite large, so I still had to join some together, but I was able to cover the whole spine with some joint in the middle. It's a little bit fox, but that just adds to the charm of it. What I was a little concerned with when I made it was that the fold along the spine would not be quite robust enough. Again, this music paper is quite soft, it's very old. I was a little concerned it might split, and while the white paper underneath is fine and won't split, this could. So what I did to stop that happening was to cover the entire spine and about 1.5 inches on the front and back with calico, and that extends well down inside all of this, so it's held in there and is very secure. The closure is simple grommet on the back, post on the front and a hairband, my usual ones. once this starts to expand a little, which it will once I start adding to my journal and adding photos and things, I'll simply add another hairband to this to give it some extra length. It's pulling fairly firmly now, so I'll just extend that. Put that out of the way until we want it. You can see I've used some of the lovely pages from the Nature Diary where I can. Some of them I've added a little bit of glossy accents to, and I always put a pocket in the front and back of my journals, but in this case I didn't. I've added pockets to the signatures and to the pages rather than cover up the lovely illustrations. Each of the pages is the same, and you can see the text around the edges of the base pages. I've matted them all with this very cheap quality craft. I quite like the warm colour of it, but it is hopeless to use for anything but matting. It's far too soft and fragile to use for things like card bases or anything like that. So, but it was perfect for using up. Most of that was scraps that I had used for other projects. Some of these larger pieces were cut from new sheets. And that's probably about the only thing that I used that was not simply straight out of my scrapbooks. So that's the flip page, and I explained I cut that a little longer than the template simply because I had the text field to go on. I put a belly band on here, and because I used this punch to punch out this strip from a scrap of the craft that was cut off from the edge of something, I just cut a scrap also of the text field, a double layer underneath, and then adhered them with the red tape top and bottom. What that effectively did, it cut down by about 1/4 of an inch top and bottom on the amount of space that is underneath that belly band. I can't push, it's probably more like 1/2 an inch to be honest, maybe 3/8 of an inch. I can't use that space because it's adhered down. I have a bit of a horror of belly bands being too loose because I've made them in the past with tabs on the back, and they just have too much leeway and things just drop out. So in trying to make it tight, I actually cut down the size too much. And as a consequence, when I went to put my tall envy in, which that's the sort of proper size, and you can see it's got about 1/2 an inch gap at the top, so you put your tag in there and it you've got room to pull it out when you want to open it. When I made these, I had to actually fold that fold line right down on the top here so that they would fit. What I should have done was use Jen's template and tuck the little tab underneath the mat and then adhere the whole thing down, and that would have given me the full length of this as my belly band. But silly mistake, but I'll fix that for next time. These envies are lovely. They're nice and plain and long. I've decorated them, most of these things, with butterflies because it fitted the theme, and I had all these butterflies that I've made. I'll put a link to that in the description box where I did those. And these tags are cut from the Nature Diary, and they're backed with some end papers, some lovely cream end papers from other books. Because of the lack of room within the envelope, I couldn't put a time knot there because it just would have been two-dimensional. So what I did was I used a tiny attacher and just attached those with a crossed staple, and that works really well because it's very low profile. You just need to be careful to go in with something at the back and make sure those points are well pushed down, or they'll start to dig into the paper that you're sliding them in and out and do some damage, and also they can catch your skin. So that was the tall envy, and there's one of those in each of these belly bands. I've also added I like to add little journaling notebooks to envelopes, and this one's just got a couple of little dangly butterflies on the end. They've each got something different on their dangles. A bit awkward getting that under there. The pocket on the side, lovely big photo mat, plenty of room on that. You could use that as a glue page or photos or both. And on that I've used, I think these Tim Holtz tabs. I did cut out all of the Jen's lovely tabs that come with the printable, but they'll live to play another day. I had these 3 metal tabs in my drawer. They've been there for 100 years, so I thought the time had come for them to be used. And on the back of each page, this is the pocket made from the folded piece, and in that there are 2 more of the tags, and I've tried to cut these from some of the larger illustrations so that they basically match. They're backed with file pages, so they're good for documenting, and there's plenty of room there for another couple of photos. All 3 pages are the same, but as I say, just these little danglies are different. That one's got paper beads, and the third one, the little booklet in there's got some hearts. The 2 journaling signatures, these pieces in the middle, are pretty standard. I made the covers from brown paper stitched together. There's about 3 layers of brown paper stitched together, and to help strengthen the spine I've also added a calico strip to that. If I'd thought, and it also ties it in with the main cover, if I'd thought about it a little more, I would have actually run it right through the inside as well as the outside, but I didn't. So what I did on the inside, because to cover this slightly ugly brown paper, because this was fairly narrow, I used some washi tape which I've glued down across the middle, so that just covers that area of stitching and gives it a bit more colour interest across the spine, and a little bit more strength, I guess, too. Pocket on the back, made from one of the folded pages. There's one of those little tiny envelopes, and there's a few, these are graphics vary tags that I've just added in for journal spots. There's a glassine bag in each of these 2 that is joined across the middle with double-sided tape and then stitched into the signature when I've added them into the journal, and that just gives me a little pocket to add some little stickery things from the small cutouts that are in from the scrap pieces of paper. Just cut them out with punches, and that one you can see I've mounted it on a couple of little labels and put some glossy accents, so they look quite pretty. These are really useful. You can put 2 of them together to form a page marker. You can use them to adhere bits of memorabilia into the journal. The Xyron sticker maker is not too bad as far as permanency goes, so they become quite useful. You can decorate the pages with them, that sort of thing. Here's one of the little tiny mini tall envelopes, and I've just added a little tag in there with a dyed seam binding pull tag on it, just to make it easy to get in and out. And that's just cut from some of the text of the larger book. And there's one of the little other envelopes. Pocket on the side, again made from a folded piece of paper. This goes as double-sided too, just a small page, I think from Who's Who in Australia, and it's nice paper but it's very light, so 2 together, again stitched all around with this top piece folded down so that it gives you 4 pockets from the one page, and they're just stitched in as you go. And here you can see there's that page marker attached to the little split ring at the top, and you can just put those wherever you want them. The centre of the signature is an envelope with, it's got another envelope inside it with a journaling card inside, and it just stays shut with that, not that it really needs it. So that's that pocket at the back, we said that. This one is the same. This one is basically the same as a pocket there and a little journaling book there. This is a paper tray ink matte stat 6 die, I think, cut out from the paper line, added to a piece of the craft at the back to make it a bit more sturdy. And this is the little gift card envelope, again with a journaling thing in it. So another envelope in the centre there. This is the other little page that I used from the smaller journal. Just used that as a tuck spot because I like this pussy willow illustration. Another little birdie pocket there, and this is just a magnetic page marker for using in the journal. And that's basically it. I think that I'm quite pleased with the outcome. I think I've achieved my goal of using quite a lot of the pages from the books as the components of the journal. So I think I've achieved my goal. I haven't put a lot of detail into it. For example, the pages and things, but truly if anyone is interested, I did record hundreds of hours of, well, not hundreds, but you know, quite a few hours of video while I was making it, but I didn't want to bore your socks off, and so I thought if anyone's interested in any of those components, just sing out, because I'd be happy to share them with you, should you like to see them. The frame is the paper tray ink matte stat 6 die cut, and perhaps I'll tell you about that, how I cut my, when I'm using 2 dies. This is slightly skewed because I've had it off, but when I need to cut a frame like this using 2 separate dies when they're not joined, I simply use painter's tape. I line the dies up on my cutting mat with the grid lines so that I get them as exactly centered as I can with each other. I add the painter's tape over the top, and then using the static tool, anti-static tool, I give it a really good dusting so that there's none of this exposed tape on the back is actually got any adherence left. It's just dusty and white. Then when I cut them out, and I was using this quite cheap craft, when I cut them out, nothing sticks to the paper. They lift off very easily, they stay together, they're quite sturdy, and so you can repeat and make the 4 or 5 whatever die cuts that you need to then adhere together and make the frame that you want. So I just thought I'd share that little tip with you. You probably already know that though, don't you? There's not a lot new under the sun. But as I say, I'm pleased. I achieved my goal. I've used a lot of pages in this, and I quite like the feel and the look of it. Here I am back with the tutorial for the putting the pages together. Here I'm going around the printed piece, the template for the main page, main base A part 1, and I'm just drawing around that so that I can cut it out on the cutter. Using the viscous cutter to cut that out. I'm getting used to it, and I like to use the side that I've cut straight. I like to use that as the the side I cut to the next, that makes sure all of your cuts are nice and straight. Just trimming those extraneous pieces out. Remember, these pages are glued together, so they're double pages glued together. They're lovely and sturdy, as you can see. Just tabbing off those corners to get rid of the excess paper, and back to the Martha Stewart scoreboard to put in the score lines. Just checking that you've got the prettiest side up. Not that these made a great deal of difference, but if you've got a side that's got more blanks, then that's best to put onto the inside. Just finger pressing down those folds. Excuse the head, it keeps intruding. That's all three of the part A done. And now I've got part B, the main base A part 2. And before I cut them apart, it's a good idea to write on them what they are, so that you, when you've finished your project, you can go back to them, you know what they are. That piece is the flip page, and you can see there I'm lining it up so that the fold will be against the text line there, and I don't cut them short, I leave them long so that they're actually a little longer than the actual template. They're still small enough to fit within the album parameters. Trimming out those tabs, and I leave that tab on the back, the part without any text on it. Leave it long, it doesn't matter that it's a little wide. It's down inside the pocket of the page, and all that means is it's got a wider strip of adhesive and is going to be more robust. Just fitting it into the, that's the flip page done, just fitting it inside the main page. Make sure it fits. There's the second one. Not that there's much doubt about it. It's lovely using these templates. You know things are going to fit. There's no guesswork, there's no measurements. It's just wonderful. Now I'm adding the double-sided adhesive to the right side of those tabs so that they can adhere inside the pages. I always use as wide a piece of tape as I can. Pays to have a good range of tapes to get the maximum adherence. Yeah, I'm just showing you there how much wider those flip pages are than the actual template, about an inch. Keeping all my little bits of template together while I'm still using them. Now this is the little pocket for the back of the page, and I'm going around again and drawing around the template. With these two, I didn't actually adhere the two pages together before I started, so these pages, as you saw there, are still loose. They're not glued down. I thought I might get away with not gluing it, but I saw sense before I finished, and I'll show you that in a moment. Just trimming those out on the paper trimmer. And then scoring the tabs with the scoreboard. Putting the little ticks on the corners makes it very easy to line this up visually. I haven't found it necessary to use a ruler and draw lines, though you can do if you need to. going in and removing that excess from the corners. And both of those. That back tab on the pocket was a little narrower than than the template, but it was wide enough to be effective. There we go. Just finger folding those down, and you can see it's still open on both sides of the little pocket. And when I thought about it, I thought, no, I do need to adhere something, but in the end I just used Scotch glue to adhere the 2 layers of the tabs together, and that was quite sufficient. I'm always on a bit of a quest for not overusing my adhesive, and I thought this was a good solution. You really just need to adhere the tabs together rather than the whole of the page. That worked pretty well. Here we are, just adding the flip pages to the main pages. Using the glue stick to stop that instant grab. Pressing them down. Giving it a final burnish. And there's the photo mat going onto the inside of that large central pocket. Here's one of the little side pockets that we just made going down. A bit more glue stick. Getting it all lined up. As I said, it's wonderful. The templates, everything fits perfectly. There's no guesswork at all. Just lovely, lovely to put together. There's the pocket on the back of the page. And there's the final one, the final page, the final pocket. So that's the pages fully assembled. All that remains now is to mat them. And for that I use the craft, very cheap craft cardstock, but it was great for matting. And I quite like the colour. Makes a good base for photos. I didn't use any of the matte templates for this. It was very simple just to lay the pieces on, and there was nothing complex. Lay the pieces of cardstock onto the page and just mark it off quickly with a pencil and cut them out. Adhering it down with the Helmar glue. Makes
makes a very robust little page. Rolling it down. I don't show you all of this, it's just the general idea. There we go. That's it for this quick little tutorial for using book pages as cardstock. Thanks for watching. Any queries, don't hesitate to ask. Talk to you soon. Bye.